Welcome back, CSA. Today we're going to talk about print statements, escape sequences, and comments. We're going to keep these videos short as we can, so we're not going to do any programming in the video, but I will show you some examples of programs. And we will do the demo, the actual programming in class, so make sure you're here for that. So let's take a look at this. We're going to look at programming output first. Here's my first example, and again, you have all the examples in Google Classroom for you to look at. But this is an example of a program here. This is going to demonstrate the ability to use certain keywords and the conjunction of those to build programming statements. So you see here I've got some text here, public class example 1, public static void main string args. None of this needs to mean anything to you yet, but what you have here are a series of programming statements and the associated output. So here I've got system.out.println, and then welcome back to school. I'm glad you all took this course, AP Computer Science A, we'll have many things to do, blah, 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 blah. And you can see that it all prints, and certain statements print certain ways. So you see I have printlns versus just regular prints. I've got printlns with stuff, printlns without stuff. And so you can see I get slightly different outputs. We're going to talk about how all this stuff sort of works as we go. But the idea of stringing keywords together to perform a task is exactly what we're trying to do here. So Java keywords and programming statements. A keyword is a word that has a special meaning in the program. It performs a special function. You can't use those words for anything other than what their intended purpose are. When you start stringing them together, you get programming statements. You got to make sure that you are very careful with how you spell them. They are very much case sensitive. So the word system spelled with an uppercase S is different than the word system with a lowercase s. So you need to be very mindful of that. So in this example, it demonstrates the use of the println method. A method is a function. It's an action that will be performed for you when you use it appropriately. If I go into the system class with the out package and I access the println method, I can then print something to the console that's held within those parentheses, and using those double quotes signifies that that's text that I'd like to print. So system.out.println will print a statement, and then it will also move the cursor down a line, and then println line 2, it'll also move the cursor down a line. And in the output, it's actually important to note that the cursor, when it's finished, is actually below the last line that gets printed, because this ln function moves the cursor down a line after it prints whatever it's set to print. Okay? So here's 4 full programming statements and their associated output. All programming statements will end with a semicolon in Java as well, so slightly different than Python where we don't have to use that. Here's a new method called the print method. The print method will print your line of text, however, it will not return or move the cursor to the next line. So you can see why I got system.out.print line 1. Notice it prints it, but the cursor doesn't move down, so the line 2 actually gets printed on the same line. Since it's still a print statement, the cursor doesn't move down. Line 3 gets printed on the same line, but line 4 gets printed on a separate line because the cursor moved down after printing this line 3 text, and the cursor is actually floating down here after it prints the line 4 text. So the print versus println. The ln stands for a new line. You can, whoops, I went a little fast. Nope. Sorry, okay. The println function is something called an overloaded function as well, or an overloaded method. You can provide it with information or not. If you give it nothing inside the parentheses, it will do something. It will just move the cursor down a line. So that's one way to kind of move stuff around for yourself. So you can see that I've got println of text output line 1, then a blank ln, which gave me the blank line here, and then text output on line 3, and it moved the cursor down 1. So the print versus the println, both are keywords, okay? It'll display things appropriately. What you need to remember is println will print the statement and move the cursor down a line, while the print will print the statement, keep the cursor on the line, so it will not do the carriage return or the line feed, okay? All right, while you're programming, you're going to run into errors as you're programming. Now, a Java program has to be set up in a very specific way. What you'll notice here, and when we start building our programs, is we don't necessarily have to worry about this error too much, but in our case, the class name, all Java is based on classes. Public class boohis is what I have here, but I also have a file here that says example5.java. The only way to get a class, a main class to run, a class that contains your main method to run, is that it shares the exact same name as the file. So in order for this to run, what we notice here is the class name and the file name do not match. In order for this to execute, they must match. So this particular file must be named example5.java. So again, if you have a howdy.java, you need a class that's named howdy in order for it to work. Generally, our files and our class names should start with an uppercase letter. It'll make naming conventions as we move on a little bit easier to work with. Okay. In this particular example, you see that every programming statement, again, ends with a semicolon. If they don't, what you'll end up with is a syntax error. And the syntax errors are helpful to read. Make sure you read them appropriately. This one specifically says, insert a semicolon to complete the statement. And it tells you what line number to look at. So if you look at line 9, or Java colon 9, it tells you that there's a problem here. You can see the little red squiggly if you're using an IDE like Eclipse here. It'll tell you where it is. It'll also give you a little red X there. So pay attention to those. Comments. Comments are documentation that you can put into your program. Here is a use of single line comments. Single line comments are special keystrokes that you can put into your programs. As long as you start a line with a double slash, a double forward slash, that particular line will not be read by the compiler. We talked about compilers in the last lecture that will translate it into bytecode for us. So if you put that double slash in front of a series of characters, anything beyond that double slash will not be read into bytecode, so it will not be executed either. So everything up here at the top is a single line comment, okay? And even down here at the bottom in the program itself, there are single line comments. You can see that I have half dozen. That particular text isn't going to be read by the compiler. 1 dozen. And this entire line, line 32, has been commented out. So this system.out.println 13, you notice it doesn't actually print, okay? Because that line is actually commented out. Very useful when we get into some very simple debugging to take out lines of code without actually taking out the lines of code and deleting things. Sometimes you want to comment out chunks of code, so we have multi-line comments. Multi-line comments are very similar. Instead, they start with a /* and then they have to end with a */. So anything between these two comments will then be commented out. So you can see how I print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I skip 7 through 11, and then finally print 12 and 13 over here in our output. It demonstrates that all these lines were commented out as well. Okay, so a single line comment is the double slash. Okay, the multi-line comment is the /* and it ends with a */. Anything beyond the single line comment to the right of it will be commented out. Anything between the /* will also be commented out. So it's a nice, quick, easy way to document your code. Escape sequences. These are some things that you might see on the AP exam in terms of code, and you'll have to understand what the output kind of looks like and does. There's one that we use quite often, and that's the very first one, that's /n. The /n will perform a carriage return, so essentially what it will do is move the cursor down the line. So you're going to see that it has a println statement. I've got the /n, that's why this program, when it prints, has this blank space in here. Then it prints, and then it prints a blank line, and then another blank line for the system.out.println, so that way it turns down almost 2 extra spaces. So it's a nice way to get extra spacing into your program. The /t does horizontal tabs, so a couple spaces. The /r performs a carriage return without a line feed. Not exactly useful, but it is partly there, so it allows you to keep your cursor where it needs to be. If you want to print a single \, you actually need to put 2 backslashes in order to print that single \, because the \/ is such an important character. It doesn't necessarily register as a character to print in a print function. So if you wanted to print a single /, you need to actually write 2 of them. So you can notice how it says path C : //Java / bin, but it only prints the 1 /. So to print one, you have to precede it with another one. And if you want to print double quotes, since quotation marks will begin and end strings, you have to print a / then a quotation mark in order for it to actually print the quotation marks. Because if we don't put the / here, what we'll have is a syntax error. It'll start a quote, end the quote, and then this Kathy Smith won't be encapsulated in any kind of quotation mark, signifying that it's actually something to print. So you have to be very careful there. And then lastly, in this little quick tutorial, since we're talking about keywords and things that you can get used to coding-wise, the College Board has set up a subset of keywords and methods that you need to know in order to be successful for the test. They call it the AP Java subset. That you will be given during your AP exam, whether it be online or in person, if we ever get back to that, you will be given a cheat sheet basically, that has the AP Java subset written on there. If you click on either of these two links in the presentation, it'll get you to the subset. Real quick, this is what the reference sheet looks like. Okay. This is actually an older version of it, but you can see that you have all sorts of stuff that you get to use on the test, and these are really all the things that you need to use when it comes to the written portion of the test and what you'll be required to know on the multiple choice portion of the written test. Things in the object class, the integer class, the double class, the string class, the math class, and the list interface. Once you've mastered these things, knowing them is pretty simple and working with them. But the fact of the matter is, no programmer knows every little bit of the language, so everybody Googles something at some point in time, so we're giving you also the opportunity to look up information as you see fit so that you can use it appropriately. Okay. The AP Java subset, if you click here, you can see these are all the things that you're going to be tested on when it comes to it. There are tons of stuff. Comments. Hey, what we just talked about, you're going to be tested on that. You're going to be tested on your ability to do basic arithmetic, escape sequences, like we just talked about, how do you print the single slash, or the slash quotes, the double slash, the slash ends. These ones aren't tested, okay, but we did talk about them. You're going to talk about the print statement, the print LN statement, also some other things that we will talk about, but it's not quite tested. So those are just a couple of things. So we're already getting into content that you're going to be held accountable for on the AP exam. So let's make sure we study up and know what we're getting into. So read through this document. We will reference it quite often as we get into class. But yeah, these are all the things that you're going to need to know when it comes down to the test. So we are starting right away in the first week with things that are on the AP exam. There's no leading into it or getting used to certain stuff. We get into it quick and fast. So again, quick, short video, hopefully. We're going to talk more about these escape sequences and print statements in class, and we will get into your very first lab, getting you coding something on your own very shortly. So let's look forward to that. Again, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It would be quite helpful for me and also helpful for you. So yeah, we'll see you in class.